Thursday morning at 8:30, and the sky is pretty bright and clear. There's a few clouds. I'm getting ready to leave. This is Hastings that I stayed the night at, a beautiful little town, and met some great boaters along the way. The yacht in front of my boat belongs to Paul and Jill. They're from Florida, and so I went out for supper last night with them, and along with their one passenger, Tom. The three of them have been traveling since May 1st, so quite an adventure for them. I've been running into them all along the way. They passed me in the Bay of Quinte, and at Frankfurt I saw them again, and then they caught up to me just after the last lock, and came in through the locks with them here at Hastings, and camped out overnight, and went out for supper. I had a great time. So I'm in the middle of Rice Lake. I'm heading right into a west wind, and it's fairly choppy. Some cloud cover is moving in, and hopefully that doesn't get too bad. So now heading north on the Napanee River, and it's a real pleasure to be out of that wind. It's a nice area, and I'm going along quite nicely right now at about 7.8 kilometers an hour. I might have to increase that a little bit, but making progress. So as I was going up the Napanee River, I had an appointment to meet Jason Bain next to the Bentfort Bridge, and he was going to give me an interview. He is with the Peterborough Examiner, and so I arranged to meet him there, and so he was on shore, and I anchored about 30 feet offshore just south of the bridge, and gave me a great interview, and he wrote up a great article that you can pull down online. And so went to say goodbye, went to pull up the anchor, and I could not pull it up. It was the current had pushed me down a ways, and I had it felt like it was under a rock or something, and I heaved and heaved at that anchor, and I could not get it up. So I finally had to cut the rope. And now Jason felt quite bad about that, and when I got to Peterborough, a new anchor and rope was waiting for me. So I talked to him on the phone, and I told him the story of the anchor, because the anchor came into my possession, when I was just a young kid. This is when my father was working at Ontario Hydro at Niagara Falls in about it was around 1964 time frame. He was working at the coffer dam that they built above the falls. Now, during the night time, they would divert the water away from the one side of the falls, and you could actually get out and walk on the riverbed above the falls, right where the falls would normally be going over. And in that location, they found a couple of anchors from boats that had been dragged over the falls, washed over the falls, and the anchors were all that was left. And I got both those anchors. One of them was lost in Lake Muskoka when I was a kid. My brother tossed it overboard, and the rope wasn't tied. And the second anchor was the one that went at the bottom of the Bentfort Bridge, got lodged in there, and I expected that I would never see that again, and I had told the story to Jason. I just received a call today. This is September 26th, and Jason told me that they'd recovered the anchor. He was in touch with a diver. He was ex-military diver, Quentin Smith, and who's been training as a recovery diver. And this was his first job to actually dive and do a search for this anchor. He recovered it, and he says it was actually snagged around power cables that run underneath the river. So it's interesting that the origin of the anchor came from an Ontario Hydro job site on the riverbed of the Niagara River, and they were snagged around cables, power cables, which could have been quite lethal to me if I had have yanked too hard, I guess. Anyways, the Peterborough Examiner recovered, has the anchor. My cousin Carl is going to pick it up tomorrow, and then I will interface with Carl. So also there will be another story in the Peterborough Examiner to talk about the anchor, because it is such an interesting story. We're coming into Scott's Mills, and boy, the current here is really, really strong. And my cousin Carl and Melba are up waiting for me. The locks. Be there shortly. So it's a beautiful morning here at Peterborough at Ashburnham Lock. I'm at the bottom of the lock, camped here for the night, and I'm going to give my cousin Carl a ride up the lock and then through the Peterborough lift locks. So the locks are just bringing out some boats down right now, and shouldn't be very long before we're in there. Into the Peterborough lift lock. There's a couple of boats ahead of us going in now, and we'll just slip in behind this. So this will be quite the experience.
Yeah. Todd name on the shore.
Oh yeah, and there's my cousin Todd and Melba. Alright, I'll put the camera down so I can figure out what I'm doing. In the lift lock, before we go up, this is the largest lift lock in the world at Peterborough.
Captain, boats in the lower lock chamber. We are just loading boats into the upper lock chamber to be about 5 minutes before we go to transfer. Thank you.
66 feet.
Lift lock going up.
We are now going up.
We are now going up.
You don't even know you're going.
Yeah.
Look how fast it goes. So you don't realize how quick you're going.
Yeah.
big tub of water.
And yeah, there's some boats coming down.
So smooth. Or even Steven.
Boy, this is high up.
Pretty soon we'll be 66 feet up.
Okay.
See up there, that used to be the old control tower. And everything was done manual.
Oh yeah.
Open the valves and then...
Well, when they first built it. Getting to the top. Boy, that was quick.
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't take long, right?
Yeah.
Faster than some elevators.
Yeah. So I'm all set up for the night at Young's Point. This is lock 27. I started out this morning at lock 20 Ashburnham and went through the Peterborough lift locks and up through a whole series of locks. And this is the entrance to Clear Lake. It's quite a picturesque little area, very busy. And I just finished going to a local restaurant for a burger and a couple of beers. So tomorrow I'll be heading towards Buckhorn. I'm not sure how far I'm going to go, if I'm going to stay at Buckhorn or not, or go to Bob Cajun. We'll see. So when I had my boat accident, I didn't take any pictures of it because I was just so depressed that the trip would be over with. However, I was able to get things repaired in about 2.5 hours. But you can see some of the damage from the front where the posts go in. The brackets are bent way out of shape because this post got totally ripped out. You can see the bracket at the top was snapped in half, and I have just screwed it and added a little bit of glue to it to hold it back together. This post got yanked right out, and of course it bent the brackets as well, but other than that it wasn't damaged. The rear posts, the hinges were ripped out at the top, and the hinges are slightly bent. The back post here, it was bent sideways. You can still see some of the damage done to the hinge. You got a good close-up. I had to bend that back into shape, and of course the hinge at the side is still bent slightly. I'm going to have to hammer that out. and you can see the post on the other side is still slightly bent. The guy wires that I had were ripped out at at least the two at the back, and instead of having springs like this, which I have on the front guy wires, I had a lesser gauge spring, and these are all that's left of them. So I had to kind of jimmy up an arrangement here. Luckily I had a couple of spare cables that I had going as cross braces at the back, which I never use. I didn't need them because of my gas lifts at the top. Gas lifts act really good as a rear stabilizer. So anyways, I'm going to have to do some repairs over the winter or this fall, and straighten things out a bit. When the canopy came down also, it ripped my solar connectors apart. Luckily these two at the front, they just disconnected, so I just re-plugged them in, so that was okay. At the back though, you can see where I've repaired it. It actually ripped the cord right out of the connector here, so I had to splice it together and tape it. Anyways, that's what happened on the trip.